This is Sylvian Greensword. I'm here with Mrs. Loriessa Taylor-Randle in Fort Worth. We're here in the TCU building called the Harrison, and we're here for the Oral History Project with the Race and Reconciliation Initiative. Loriessa, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And
I'm
welcome
happy
back
be
to
here.
TCU.
Thank you.
I say welcome back because your ancestor Charley Thorp was instrumental in the building and maintenance and survival of this institution. And so we're here to listen to you tell us about your upbringing, tell us about what brings you back to Texas, and how you even came to understand and realize and interpret your relationship with Charley Thorp.
Right. Thank you.
So let's start from the beginning. Can you tell us about where you're from, where you grew up, where you were born? Any
Sure.
particular influences that you care to mention?
Sure. I am from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was born and raised there. I'm one of 11 children, born to my mother, Beverly Sue Randle, formerly Watley. Let's see. I went to Highland High School.
Mm-hmm.
I also went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where I was a proud member of the Lady Rebel basketball team.
Ooh, okay.
Women's basketball team. My influence. My influence is my mother. She did a lot of social, like, empowerment, justice, just kind of advocating for people.
Right.
She started the Legal Aid Society of New Mexico with a longtime friend of hers. I just remember, as a child going to rallies, whether they were like political rallies or social justice rallies. I remember as a young child going to the NAACP meetings with my mom.
About how old were you then? Do you know?
Oh my gosh. As young as I can remember is 5, because I remember standing in front of the group doing this as like a 5-year-old. And then later in life, I think the last time that I went I was probably a teenager.
Okay.
So, as far as my influences, obviously my mother, my sister Regina Shells, has always been a mentor towards me. Both my mom and my sister are college graduates, which is at the time, like when I was growing up, just kind of witnessing that was very, very important to me, especially watching my sister kind of go through and get her degree. Kind of encouraged me. Those two are definitely my influences.
What did your mother study?
She was education.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she ended up becoming a teacher?
Actually, she didn't, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's usually what
she went like the legal route where she had a friend that was an attorney, and they were fairly close, like growing up and stuff. I think they met in college. Her name is Ellen. I think they met in college, and she and Helen started the Legal Aid Society together, and so she did that for quite a bit of time as well.
So what was it, since we're dealing with the Race and Reconciliation Initiative, what was it like being Black at Highland High School?
You know what? One of the best things, honestly, about Highland High School, home of the Hornets.
Just mentioning it.
I'm just saying it. One of the best things about going to Highland High School is how diverse Highland was. Like there were Black people, there were white people, there were Native American people, there were Hispanic people, there were Mexican people, there were Vietnamese people, there were Chinese people. Highland, of all the high schools in Albuquerque, was the most diverse.
Oh.
And so I think that that in a way has kind of helped to shape who I am, you know, as a person, kind of growing up and being around just different people and being exposed to different cultures and languages and stuff. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it does change the perspective you have of the world.
Yes, it does.
And before that, can you talk about like maybe the neighborhood that you grew up in? What were the demographics like?
Very proud. I am from South Broadway, Albuquerque.
All right.
That was South Broadway was a neighborhood that was poor, primarily African American and Hispanic. There were tons of honestly, resources. There's, you know, John Marshall, which used to be an elementary school in our neighborhood, which is now a historical building. There was Dennis Chavez Community Center, which I feel like I grew up in. I go there pretty much every day after school. During the summers, I spent my entire summers at that community center. We played outside. You know, you knew your neighbors. You knew the people that lived up the street and across the street. People waved at each other. People, you know, said hi. You know, if something was going on, you know, call us nosy, but we all went to check. You know, some of my best friends that I grew up with in that neighborhood are still my friends today. So, and we've all kind of, you know, there's only a few of us that still, well, not a few of us because I no longer live in that neighborhood, but there are a lot of people that I grew up with that still live in that community, you know, and I think it was a great place to grow up. But when I tell people that I grew up on South Broadway, people kind of like, and you do this, and you know, like, you're okay. Yeah, I'm okay. Wow. You know, my mom, my family.
Wow.
You know.
Well, let's talk about your mom then.
Sure.
What do you know about her background and any stories that you can tell us when you were little growing up that you know, allow you to just know your family history?
Yeah, my mom is my mentor, my friend, my foundation, really. I feel like I'm getting emotional, but I feel like I feel like, thank you, young lady. I appreciate it. I feel like a lot of who I am today came from her. You know, I can remember, I always tell people, growing up, I didn't think that I was poor, but we were definitely poor. We always had a roof over our head. We always had food to eat. I always felt, and still feel, loved, cared about. I think that, you know, the challenges of being a single Black woman, raising essentially 11 kids, 13 if you count my niece and nephew, Ebony and Russell, who she raised from infants. So we all grew up in the same house together. And watching my mom just work tirelessly, like, I can remember her holding 2 and 3 jobs. I can remember her, you know, making the effort to be at events for us, or to kind of show us, what it means to like advocate, what it means to like stand up for other people. I think, you know, it wasn't easy, you know. My mom wasn't perfect, right? But I think that my mom did the best that she could with what she had, what she knew, the resources that were available to her. And in turn, just kind of like watching that and seeing like her go through things, struggles, highs and lows, her being able to be there for other people, has shaped who I am. One of the stories that I was sharing with Rebecca the other day is when I was a child, my mom only made lasagna one time, and I had chicken pox, and I'm bitter about that because I didn't, I was sick, I didn't get to eat it, type thing. So that story has kind of stuck with me. But one of the things that I just like came to the realization of the other day is, in talking about that whole situation with me having chicken pox and my mom only making lasagna once, what I came out of that with, every day my mom would come in there and she would rub calamine lotion on me, and she'd just sit there for like an hour, 2 hours with me, just holding me and loving me and stuff. And that made me feel good. Even today, even the other day when I was telling the story, I was just like, I was loved, and I felt that, my mom she didn't provide a lot of details about her history, right? My mom's mother, her name is Barbara Armstead, Barbara Jean Armstead, who is Eileen Lewis's child. When at some point during Barbara's life, I'm pretty sure she had challenges. What ended up happening is she left my mother with my grandmother, who is my great-great-grandmother, Gertrude. She took my mom's other sisters, Darlene and Regina, to their families. Darlene ended up staying with Barbara as Barbara moved on to the eastern part of the country. But my mom was raised by her aunt, Margaret Watley. And so from age 5, I think my mom was 5 when Margaret passed away. She was either 5 or 9. I'm not really like sure about the time period. Pardon me?
She was 9.
My mom was 9 then. See, there's the historian. But she went with Margaret, I guess, when she was 5, and when Margaret passed away when she was 9, my mom went with my great-great-grandmother, Gertrude.
Okay. Now, Margaret Watley, she's a Watley. Is that her married name, or was that her maiden name? Do you know?
That's actually her maiden name.
Which means that she is a descendant of
She
Charley
is a
Thorp.
descendant of Charley Thorp, and she raised my mother.
Her mother was Lily Mae Smith.
Yes.
Who was Kitty Thorp's daughter.
Yep.
Who is Charley Thorp's daughter?
Yep. There you go.
Daughter of Charley and Leon Hightower, which is, whenever you get a chance to go to Thorp Spring, you'll find out that the Hightowers were actually a big family in the Thorp Spring area. So you actually are tied to TCU on both sides of your tree, because the Hightowers, based on this one historian wrote a book, and she explained that the Hightowers actually were brought by a TCU teacher who owned Simon Hightower. And so even the name Hightower was the name of that professor And so then, they founded that settlement called the Colony. And you
Right.
get a chance to see it.
Right.
Although it's nobody lives there anymore,
Right.
but the cemetery is still there. You still have traces of the church and the black school that were there. But yeah, so you are actually that's amazing. So TCU brought both of your sides of the tree with both Charley and Leanne.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That is so, wow, that's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. So these two women, Leanne Hightower and Kate Thorp, both had children with Charley, but both of them were married to Charley directly or indirectly because of TCU.
Wow. Wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah. That's funny how history just comes together and just,
Yeah. Wow.
But tell us about, okay, so you tell us about Barbara Jean. Barbara Jean went to the East Coast.
Right.
What do you know about Margaret?
What do I know about
Yeah.
Margaret? I know the stories that my mom told me.
Please
How
tell.
my mom said that honestly, Margaret made her feel like a princess.
Oh.
Like she treated her well. My mom didn't go without anything. And for me to say I didn't go without anything is a little bit different than my
Right.
mom.
Yeah.
Because the way that my mom described Margaret was like they came from money, which is just out there for me. And honestly, for that time period, she said that she felt like, Margaret loved her. Margaret's the one that taught my mom how to read, how to write,
Wow.
how to be, what did mom call it? A young lady, and she kind of did this, which probably means that she was wearing a dress or she was like a young lady, So my mom knew obviously who her mother was, right? But Margaret's the one that raised my mom. And, my mom said, at certain points I'd be like, oh, Mom, and I'd have to catch myself because she knows who her mother is. But Margaret is the one that's there and she's raising her. But I felt like, I could gather from that my mom felt the connection both ways with Margaret and with her mom, Barbara. So definitely loved them both. There's tons of pictures with my mom at this birthday party at different parties, different I don't know if they were events or whatever, but my mom's got on some pretty nice clothes. And she's looking fly. She's looking good. So she seemed to be happy around tons of friends, stuff like that. She just said that she had a really good childhood. Not a lot of details necessarily on that childhood, because I think my mom, I don't know, maybe she had some reservations about what to share and what not to share. When you think you've got tons of time left, and you might, get to sharing that as your daughter, like me, I'm asking her these questions.
Right.
Oh, we'll talk about that later type thing. And then later turns into Mom's not here anymore.
That's it.
And, her time has passed. So you don't really, for me, I didn't get the answers that I was searching for,
So what do you think make those things taboo? Is it the culture? Is it the
I think
religion?
it's not just the culture, but knowing the family, history, things that people may or may not be ashamed of, kind of suppressing that or
Yeah.
pushing that down. You know, kind of like the attitude of, if you don't talk about it, then, you know, you can kind of brush it aside,
Right.
push it away type
Right.
thing. You know, I don't think that my mom had an easy life, especially from what I know as far as like after Margaret passed away.
Right.
So I don't think that it was like easy. Obviously, my mom had 11 children. You know, she was, I believe my mom was 11 or 12 years old when she had my oldest sister.
Wow.
So she had a rough life.
I
You know,
see
she
that.
took my sister Elena and went across the country to try to keep her child. You know, and of course they found her across the country, brought her back, and my mom had to give her child up.
Oh.
Can't even imagine.
Yeah.
You know, being in a grocery store, and my sister Elena, who's my mom's firstborn child, is in the grocery store, and she's pointing at my mother because they're the spitting image, Elena. She's pointing at my mom, and she's saying to her, "Are you my mom?" Right? And my sister Regina, who grew up playing with Elena, not knowing that Elena was her sister. Okay? "You're my sister?" We're like buddies, you know, like we're like, "Yeah, you're my girl," you know. And then to find out that they're sisters, that's heavy.
It is.
Heavy. It's a lot, you know. So
So how then did you come about finding those answers to those questions that your mother did not answer for you?
I think talking to, you know, my brother Rodney. Rodney's like, Rodney has so much information, but he's so like, you know, he's got a lot of social anxiety, so he doesn't really like, you know, talk a lot and stuff like that. So you have to actually ask him direct questions.
I see.
So, you know, I'll go over to his house with my, you know, with my little notes, and I'll start asking him questions. He's like, "Yeah, you know, this happened," you know, because he was around
Yes.
for most of it, you know. So Rodney has been able to kind of give me a lot of answers, not just about like my mom, but, you know, some of my family history with my uncles and stuff on Gertrude's
Right.
sons. Regina, you know, just getting information from her that she could recall that my mom had either told her or, you know, shared with her, or she found out like later. You know, my mom had this chest of like all kinds of like, I don't know, and there are documents. She's got all of our social security numbers written down, and our dates of birth and stuff. And there's tons of pictures. Like some of them have like names written on the back, so you know that it was Jenny Watley, or you know that it was EB, or you know that, you know, it's my grandma Gertrude, right? Or you know that that's, you know, our Aunt Margaret, right? And then some of them don't have any, you know, kind of like what Karen was telling me about Charley Thorp. She said there's this picture with this guy in the field, and they think it's Charley, but there's no notation. So kind of like that. There's a lot of photos like that, you know, I wish, you know, that when I was younger that I was more forceful and more interested in really knowing. Hey mom, tell me who this person is. Who are all these people in this photo? You know, and it's not just me that's wondering that. You know, I had a family member reach out to me through like, through some of my mom's sisters, with a picture, with a photo, and no one knows if that's Jenny Watley in the photo or not. And if that's my, if that's my Uncle Kermit, like who's in that like photo? There's 4 people in there. There's an older lady. There's 2 girls and a boy. Like who are they? We don't know.
Wow.
So
One day maybe.
yeah, yeah.
The research continues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his stories, like for example, the story that you shared with me prior to this interview about the birth of your grandmother, and Eileen Lewis' story and T.B. Watley. So I saw on her birth certificate that the father's name is left blank, but clearly, if she was raised by Margaret Watley, everybody knew that T.B. Watley was the father, clearly. And, even on her death certificate, it states that he is her father. How did you find out the truth? Or how did you find out what transpired, since there were those silences in your mother's account, and how did you piece it back together?
Honestly, like DNA, being connected like that way. Also, honestly, like word of mouth. Like we all know in this community,
Everybody knows, yeah.
Everybody knows that, and, looking at census records, right? You can see where people lived in relation to other people. If these 2 people live on the same street, right?
Yes.
What are the chances of it, of them actually knowing each other, or entering into whatever, to be able to have, a child, So those are some of the things that, we sort of like looked at. Honestly, Rebecca looked at and was able to like piece together a lot of this stuff for us. Because like I told you, we were kind of ambivalent, kind of like, but then certain things happen and it just kind of pushes you.
I see.
To want to know where you came from and who you are.
So how would you say that knowing your ancestry changed you?
Just knowing that you do come from somewhere, right? And no matter what that like journey like looks like, that you come from somewhere,
right?
And everybody has everyone has a history. There's a reason why every person is here. And just being able to, like having you guys like reach out to us, I can't tell you how important that is, for me personally, and a lot of folks in my family, because there's so many rumors out there, about who we come from and how people are conceived and stuff like that. And who were their actual parents, or their mother, not their mother, their father, right? And to actually have some factual details about that, I am blown away by that. I am grateful. We had saw like, had found like Charley Thorp at some point like in Santa Fe. And we thought that he was from like Tennessee. where he was from, and then when you brought your details and stuff, we were kind of able to. It helped us to. It helped to confirm that we were on the right path.
Yes.
And it helped to clarify like a lot of things for us. You know, that's why when you called and you said, you know, like, this isn't a scam, you know, you had reached out to other folks in my family and they're like, what do you want? And I was like, nope, I'm not going to ask you what you want or anything. You have information about an ancestor of mine. You're darn right I'm here. I am going to participate. I'm going to offer whatever it is that I can and that I know. Mm-hmm.
Oh. Whew. Okay. Thank you. What are your expectations for Reconciliation Day tomorrow?
Wow, expectations. You know what? I haven't even thought about that. Like, what do I expect out of that?
Yes.
I think something that's important to me is that, honestly, that Charley Thorp is recognized for not just his contribution to TCU, but Charley Thorp is a human.
That's
Okay? He's a human. He's a man. And he deserves to be acknowledged as like a human. Charley Thorp wasn't a slave, right? But he did what people call free work. There's no free work. You know, a matter of fact, one of my mottos as a professional, ask anyone. They know the state of New Mexico, when they come and they ask me to do something, Loriessa Randle doesn't do free work. So you're going to pay me for the work that I do. And that makes me think about Charley Thorp and all of his quote unquote contributions, how he, some of the things that he has been said to have done, you know, for TCU that he was not compensated for. I would like, I guess, to get out a reconciliation and acknowledge that happened.
yes.
And like I was telling you, I saw that plaque in the hallway there, and how it talks about Pleasant Thorp and the Clarks and stuff like that. It talks about 1873 when TCU was officially established, right? There was no slavery in 1873, but Charley Thorp did free work. Come on. Let's call it what it is. You know, that's what I want. Not just, you know, not just for my family, but Charley Thorp was a human man. Give him that. Acknowledge that. Tell the truth about what the reality of that was. That's what I hope. I don't know that that's what I'm going to get, but that's what I hope. You know?
Well, thank you for making this absolutely clear. Do you feel connected to TCU?
You know what? It's really interesting. I feel, I don't know that I necessarily feel connected to TCU as like a university. One, I didn't go to school here.
Although we were your rivals at some point.
Right. I was telling you about playing basketball against them. So I, not in that like manner, right? But I think where it's going to hit home for me, okay, is when I go to Thorp Springs today, and I'm able to see the original stuff, the remains of what's like left there, and
Wasn't
I'm
much,
able
but
to
yeah.
right, and I'm able to see the like grave sites and stuff like that. That's where it's going to hit home for me, I believe. I think that what would aid in me feeling connected to TCU is them acknowledging my great, 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 great grandfather.
Yeah.
That's what would make me feel connected, like a full circle.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much for joining us again and sharing your words of wisdom and your stories and your experience. Thank you for allowing us to, just catch a glimpse of what it was like to grow up as a descendant of Charley Thorp, and the baggage that came with it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's what reconciliation is about. Filling in the gaps, and just putting the story together, finding the missing pieces and putting them where they belong, in the trail of history. So we are looking forward to seeing you again on Reconciliation Day. And until then, stay strong.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hi, my name is Loriessa Randle, and I am connected to TCU through my great, 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 great grandfather, Mr. Charley Thorp. And what does reconciliation mean to me? Reconciliation means a process, going through what you know, what you think you know, to what reality is. That's what it means to me. So, thank you.